One of the hardest lessons in life is understanding that you can't make someone change just because you want them to. You can talk, you can advise, you can even plead, but if they're not ready on the inside, nothing you say will truly land. Change is like a locked door, and the tricky part is the lock is only on their side. You can't push it open from yours. And that's where so many people get frustrated. They think, if I explain it enough times, if I show them the facts, if I make them see the consequences, they'll understand. But change isn't born from logic alone. It's born from readiness. And readiness has its own mysterious timeline. Sometimes it takes a mistake. Sometimes it takes a heartbreak. Sometimes it takes being tired of your own excuses. You have to realize there's a big difference between being aware of a problem and being ready to do something about it. That gap, it's huge. And in that gap, you have to respect their process. If you push too hard, you don't make them change. You make them defend what they're doing even more. It's human nature. Nobody likes being forced into a corner, even if that corner is the truth. So instead of being the force that pushes, be the presence that waits. That way, when they finally start to open the door, you're standing there, not as the person who nagged, but as the person who understood. And that's where the second truth comes in. Change starts when a person sees. I'm not talking about just noticing the problem. People notice all the time. They say, yeah, I know I should do this differently, but they keep doing the same thing. Seeing is deeper. It's when they connect the dots between their choices and the life they're living. It's when the pattern stops being invisible. It's when they feel the cost of staying the same. That's the moment when something shifts inside. And here's the thing, you can't see for them. You can point, you can shine a light, you can tell your story, but the seeing has to happen in their own mind, their own heart. When they finally see, everything changes. The excuses lose their grip. The denial loses its comfort. They start to realize that staying the same is scarier than the risk of change. And that's when readiness and vision meet. That's when the door they've been holding shut begins to creak open. And when that happens, the best thing you can do is be there. Not with an I told you so, but with a quiet nod that says, I'm glad you're here, because that moment is fragile. And it's the beginning of everything. But before that moment of action comes, there's often this long, quiet season that nobody talks about, the silent season before change. On the surface, it looks like nothing is happening. She might still be repeating the same patterns, still saying the same things, still carrying herself in the same way. But inside, small cracks are forming. Doubts start creeping in. She begins asking herself questions she never dared to before. And it's strange, because this season can last weeks, months, even years. To outsiders, it's frustrating. You want to shake her and say, don't you see what's happening? But here's the truth. If you try to drag her out of that season before she's ready, you're not helping, you're interrupting. Every silent moment is part of her process. It's like a seed underground. You don't see the roots forming, but that doesn't mean nothing's growing. And when the time is right, those roots will push through the surface in their own strength. That's why your role in this isn't to control, it's to support. And real support doesn't mean standing over someone with a checklist. It's about holding a space where they feel safe enough to open up. Sometimes that space is just your quiet understanding. Sometimes it's your willingness to listen without judgment. And sometimes it's your ability to let them walk their own steps, even if it means they stumble. Think of it like being a mirror, not a hammer. A hammer forces shape by striking. A mirror simply reflects what's already there and lets the person decide what they want to see. People grow faster when they're not defending themselves from your blows. They grow when they can trust the reflection you're showing them. And trust doesn't come from pressure. It comes from patience, consistency, and the quiet kind of love that doesn't make demands. Then one day, almost without warning, there's a shift. It might be small at first. So small, you could miss it if you're not paying attention. She might ask a different kind of question, or admit something she's never admitted before. She might finally say the words, I can't keep living like this. That's the turning point. And it almost always comes from something deeply personal, something that breaks the pattern from the inside. Maybe it's a moment of embarrassment, a moment of loss, or simply waking up one morning feeling exhausted by the weight of her own choices. Here's the thing about that moment. You don't get to schedule it. You can't predict the day or the hour. But when it comes, you'll know. Her eyes will hold a new kind of honesty. Her voice will have less defense and more openness. And when you see that, you'll understand why all the waiting, all the patience, all the quiet space you gave her mattered more than any lecture ever could. But readiness by itself isn't enough. I've seen so many people reach that turning point only to slide back because they didn't take action. Readiness without action is like a match that's never struck. It has the potential to burn, but it never lights the way. That's why when she's ready, the next step is crucial. And it doesn't have to be massive. In fact, the first step should be small, something manageable that builds momentum without overwhelming her. Because once she takes that first step, something powerful happens. She realizes she can move forward. She sees that the fear of changing was worse than the change itself. And from there, each small action becomes proof that she's capable, proof that she's stronger than she thought, proof that the old patterns no longer own her. And your role in this stage, celebrate the steps, not the finish line. Don't measure her by how far she still has to go. Measure her by how far she's already come. Remind her that progress is progress no matter how slow it feels. You cannot walk the path for her, and that truth can be hard to accept, especially if you care deeply. When you love someone, when you see their potential, when you can almost feel the life they could have if they made certain changes, it's tempting to want to pick them up and carry them to that better place. But change doesn't work that way. Even if you could carry them, the moment you put them down, they would walk right back to the old familiar ground because their feet never learned the way forward themselves. What you can do, however, is light the path. Think of it like being a lighthouse. A lighthouse doesn't chase the ships. It doesn't force them to turn. It just stands there, steady, dependable, unshaken by the storms, always shining. And when a ship is finally ready to come home, the light is what guides them. That's your role. You're not the storm. You're not the wind. You're the light. And here's the thing. Being that light means you have to manage your own patience. You can't burn out because you're frustrated, they're not moving faster. You can't start flickering on and off every time they make a choice you don't agree with. Consistency is what earns trust, and trust is what makes your light worth following. Now, I'm not saying this is easy. Patience in the face of someone else's slow growth can feel like torture. You watch them make mistakes, you watch them repeat patterns you already know will hurt them. You watch them stand at the edge of better choices and turn away. It's painful, but here's the reality. You can either let that pain turn into resentment, or you can let it turn into compassion. Resentment makes you bitter. Compassion keeps you steady. Compassion says, I understand you are still figuring it out. Compassion says, I stop not going anywhere, even if you stumble. Compassion says, your pace may frustrate me, but your journey is still yours. And this is where we have to address something important. Change is not a betrayal of who she was. This is one of the biggest reasons people resist change. They think it means rejecting their past, rejecting the choices that once made sense to them, or even rejecting the version of themselves that survived those seasons. But change isn't betrayal, it's evolution. It's taking the strength you had then and letting it carry you into a new chapter. When she understands that, when she realizes that becoming more doesn't mean she was less before, something in her resistance begins to soften. She stops defending the old way as if it's a personal attack to improve it. She begins to see change not as a punishment, but as an opportunity. Now, I want you to picture this. She's been on this journey of readiness. She's had the moments of doubt. She's had the quiet nights of questioning herself. She's had the turning point. She's taken the first steps. And now she's standing in this new space, looking back at the path she's walked. This is where your patience becomes her proof. She remembers the times you didn't push her away. She remembers the moments you chose to listen instead of lecture. She remembers the way you stayed when it would have been easier to give up on her. That's when the title of this talk becomes reality. She will see this when she's ready to change. She will see the wisdom in what you tried to say long ago. She will see the value in the space you gave her. She will see that all along you were not against her. You were for her in the truest way. And here's the beautiful thing. When that moment comes, there's no need for you to say, I told you so. She already knows. She doesn't need your validation. She feels it in her bones. And the bond between you, if you've handled it with grace, will be stronger than it ever was before. But there's also a responsibility in that moment for both of you. For her, the responsibility is to protect the progress she's made. Change is fragile in its early stages. It needs daily reinforcement, daily choices, daily awareness. For you, the responsibility is to keep being that steady presence, not as a crutch, but as a reminder that she's capable on her own. Over time, you'll notice something shift again, this time not just in her, but in your relationship with her. It will become less about you guiding her and more about you walking beside her. That's when you know the journey has come full circle. She's no longer the person who needed constant reminders. She's the one reminding herself. And maybe, just maybe, one day she'll become the lighthouse for someone else who isn't ready yet. So if you're in that place right now, waiting for someone to change, remember this: the story isn't over just because you can't see movement. Readiness is often invisible until the moment it explodes into action. And when that day comes, the seeds you planted in patience will be the roots that keep her grounded in her new life. And if she's listening to this right now, and she is ready to change, let me say this directly to her: you are not behind, you are not late, you are right on time for the life that is meant for you. The only thing left to do is take the next step.